Yeah, so my first question is, so earlier this year, the America East established our End Racism campaign, and its focus is on anti-racism and promoting social justice. So I was just wondering about some conversations that you've had with your teammates or fellow student athletes about ending racism.
Well, I know there's another question that kind of runs along the same conversation as this, so I'll brush over this lightly.
Okay.
But for us, with my team as well as other people from within the athletics organization came in, we had an actual forum where we basically talked about the whole the black lacrosse experience and just how it is, just so that people could kind of understand and then talk about allyship and just stuff like that, as well as we just me personally, me and my teammates have had multiple conversations just about it, just because of everything that's going on. Social justice has been brought to the actual forefront, so it's being talked about a lot more.
Okay, awesome. So you kind of like touched on it a little bit, but just to add off of that, how do you think that student athletes can use their platform to promote social justice?
I think it's one of those situations where just people just shouldn't be afraid to use their actual voice in terms of putting things up on social media, as well as using your actual performance in whatever sport you play as an actual catalyst to connect people to the causes that you care so much about.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
So I got questions for you now. So
Okay.
can you share your let me see, let me make sure this is the right one. I don't want to mess up. Okay. So, can you share your thoughts on what it means to have the End Racism campaign within our conference?
I honestly think that it's so amazing that this conference has this campaign and is making it on the forefront of all the things that they're trying to do. There's been so much work done within the conference, kind of behind the scenes, and even, like I said, on the forefront. Um, with everything revolving in racism and promoting social justice. So I'm like honestly so proud to be a part of this conference and a part of these conversations. And I think that we are really being very proactive and being on top of uh, taking advantage of kind of the social justice movement wave that we're on. I think that the conference is doing a great job of taking it and running with it and looking within our own institutions that are part of the America East Conference, and seeing where we can improve, where we're doing good, what we need to improve on, and all those things. So I think that it's so huge that we're really making this a whole campaign and not just something that we just stick on T-shirts and call it a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think they're definitely being proactive and kind of being one of the first to really kind of step into the actual lane of really trying to do something.
Hmm.
So last summer you attended the march on Washington. If anyone's seen your Instagram, they'll know that. So can you talk about that actual experience?
Yes. Oh my gosh, the March on Washington was amazing. It was very powerful. I feel like that's the best word that I can use to describe it is powerful because it's a overwhelming feeling of community and just like togetherness, I guess. But it's it's communal grieving as well as communal celebration of life that was a part of the march, and it was also just crazy. I grew up in the Maryland area, so I go to DC all the time. But going to the National Mall at that time, it was so crazy because you see in the textbooks the March on Washington with Martin Luther King, and it was just so crazy. I've never looked at that space in such a amazing way, like just in awe of everything that I was experiencing and witnessing until I was actually there, part of that moment, and it was just very, very powerful and moving. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And it was also really cool seeing like how involved you were with it.
Thank you, and you're very involved. We know how involved you are on Harper's campus. So, but yeah, oh yeah, as members of the Student Athlete Color Leadership Group, can you talk about what we discuss in our meetings and what it's like to be a part of this group?
Okay, yeah, definitely. So first of all, I think it's just amazing to have the group in general, like what you said, just
Yeah, for
because
sure.
it's something that not a lot of other conferences have in terms of trying to be proactive and really trying to bring about change. And so what we actually go over, so we have ideas as well as the conference has ideas about initiatives that we can do to try and, help with the whole in ending racism and social justice. So the conference will bring up stuff such as the actual unity state statement, which I don't think is being played at every school yet, but I know definitely next year it definitely will be, as well as we'll bring up things where we'll talk about what we're doing at our actual schools, and we'll all just kind of pick each other's brains about, oh, you do
Hmm.
this, you this way, we do it that way. And then also it just gives us an opportunity to really just like connect with each other, and also see where we can potentially group up to, maybe come together with both schools to come at some type of task or try and raise money for something, or whatever we feel like we can join forces together to do something good with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of things that you just said. And my favorite part about what you just said is kind of the picking each other's brains part, because I've brought so many things back to my campus that I've learned from our meetings, just hearing about other things that are going on different campuses throughout the conference. And we've been able to like implement those things on our campus, or working on implementing some of those things. So I definitely feel like it's a very, very great group and very constructive for the
Yeah.
conference.
So, so I think I'm up. Okay, so let's see. Okay. So can you talk about some of the resources and groups that are on, well, I guess in this case, your campus that focus on prioritizing diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, so we actually, I think that you skipped a question, but I'm gonna answer this question. So on our campus we have we just started this year a student athlete of color affinity group. And that's actually one of the ideas that I got from the student athlete of color leadership group. So and that is just a space for student athletes of color to just hang out, talk about their experiences, share their experiences with each other. And we also um, talk about, I bring things from either the Spread Respect Advisory Group that I'm a part of, or the Student Athlete of Color Leadership Group for the conference. I'll bring things from those meetings, and we'll discuss them and get feedback from student athletes at UMass Lowell on what they think about conference initiatives and everything. So I think it's a really cool space to have,
Yeah.
especially because we hadn't had anything like that before. And I think it's important to have these spaces and resources on our campuses, especially because all of our campuses are we go all they're all predominantly white institutions. So having spaces for student athletes of color to just be around people that look like them and just feel at home is really, really important. So yeah.
All right, cool. And I definitely did skip a question. You're right. So I'll loop back to that one.
Okay.
But the second part of this one is, let's see here. Um, so have you had? Oh, sorry, my bad. I'm about to mess up
Okay.
again.
No, it's okay. But how about you answer the question I just answered, because I'm interested to hear about the resources that you guys have on your campus as well.
All right, cool. We'll do it that way. So yes, so for us, I think it comes down to like three big things. So one, it was us having the actual forum where me and two of my other teammates, Malcolm Bell and Malik Gay, with the help of our assistant AD who's in charge of diversity and inclusion, Falon Jackson, had this forum where we basically spoke about the black experience in the cross. And I touched on it earlier, so I'll just basically say this to sum it up. We basically had it just to educate our teammates as well as anyone else out of the other
Mm.
seven people on the call just about what the black experience is, because I feel like a big thing is that there's a lack of education when it comes to social justice and understanding different races, and we were just kind of aiming to kind of shed light on that and just to educate everyone so people are better versed when it comes to the situation.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I love that, and I love how you're. you guys talked specifically about the experience of being a black person playing lacrosse, because on
Hmm.
top of going to predominantly white institutions, we play a sport that is, predominantly composed of white people. So it's it is a very unique experience, and it's you're completely right that a lot of people don't really know, don't even under, they don't know what they don't know about our experience. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I feel like obviously there would need to be more conversations about it, but well, obviously we're all in college, so we understand the importance of education.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
let me wrap back around to the question I was supposed to ask you before.
Okay.
So you are also a member of the conference's Spread Respect Advisory Group. Can you share a little more about that group and who is on it and the conversations you all have had?
Yeah, so the Spreader Respect Advisory Group is, I think that we started meeting in the fall, and it's a newer group in the conference, and so it's composed of, there's student athlete representatives, so it's representative of all of the institutions, but there's not necessarily like a student athlete from every institution, a coach from every institution. It's just, three student athletes, however many coaches, we have administration, we have alumni, of course, like I mentioned, student athletes. So there's, every single sector within, I guess, within the athletics community, the America East athletics community is represented in that group, so that we can get well-rounded feedback and ideas and all that. And so we meet to discuss ways that we could improve the diversity and inclusion in our conference and on all of the campuses affiliated with the conference. And so we have different subcommittees, I guess, that we focus on different topics such as awareness, retention and development, recruitment, things like that. Just we talk about different ways that we can um, bring more diverse student athletes and more diverse staff and administration, coaches, all that into our conference, because it is, all of our institutions are predominantly white institutions. And we talk about how we can make the experience better for the student athletes, coaches, and administration that are currently in the conference. So it's a really, really cool group, and I feel like we're doing very important, meaningful work. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You all are really going up. You all are really doing the work. I can definitely say that from what you told me about it. And I definitely am very excited to see what you all do in the actual future.
Thank you.
So let's try and see where we're supposed to be in now. So I guess you can ask me the second part of your
Okay,
question.
yeah,
Why?
yeah. So you kind of touched on it a little bit before, but so I guess what kind of conversations have you been having with not only your teammates but also your coaches and fellow student athletes about racism and social justice? And if you've had them, like you said, you've had some of them, what have those been like? And if not, how do you think that we can foster these conversations, or just maybe a tidbit of advice on how to foster these conversations to those who don't really know how to get them started?
Okay, well, I can definitely say when it comes to just how the conversations, like when I've had them go, for me personally, like when I'm just having them casually or when it's in the setting like an actual forum or something like this, it's always interesting for me to see how much people don't actually know, and then people are
Mm-hmm.
surprised by what they don't actually know. And I've seen this from my teammates as well as my actual coaches, and with my actual head coach Martin. He's been very outspoken about it being an actual issue, and speaking about how certain things are not tolerated on our actual team and how everyone should treat each other and how to properly do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes down to advice, I think that people just have to be open. They have to be vulnerable, and they have to be willing to actually listen. You're not gonna, everything someone says, you're not going to necessarily like. But if you don't understand that person's viewpoint, then you as well as that other person cannot grow. Because if you don't want to listen to the other person with a contrary view, then you'll never learn, and there will never be any chance to actually grow for people to come together and instead of them distancing themselves more.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. And that's actually really good advice.
Thanks. So let me ask you. So I guess I'm asking the same question back to you as well. So, have you had any conversations with any of your fellow teammates or coaches or any other student athletes about social justice? And if so, how have those been like for you? And then also, how do you think we can help to get more of those conversations happen?
So in the fall with my team, we weekly we would meet via Zoom because the fall was weird with COVID and everything, and so we would either have a documentary or like an article or a podcast to listen to, something along the lines of that. Just kind of little tidbits here and there about the Black experience or the Black experience historically here in this country and all of that. And I felt like it was definitely very helpful because, like you said before, people just don't even know what they don't know. They don't know where to start. They just if you a lot of people who haven't grown up in very diverse areas, you just don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? So
Definitely.
starting there and having those conversations. At first, it was not the easiest because it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but the more that we kept doing it and the more, we started getting people to open up, then the better the conversations got, the more productive the conversations got. And then we were able to hear different points of view, understand different points of view, and really, really come to a common ground and common understanding. So that's how it went with my teammates, and my coaches have been very, very supportive of all of this. They my coach came to me over the summer and the fall, something like that, and actually was the one who suggested those conversations that I was just talking about, the ones that we were having weekly. And I was like, that's a great idea. So having that support from your coaches and your coaching staff and administration is huge, especially when you feel like I'm just me, I'm just Kristi King on the women's lacrosse team. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
what do I have to say? What do I know and everything? But having them support and having them kind of just give me the green light to just, talk about my experience as being one of the only two Black people on the lacrosse team. So just giving me and my teammate that space to talk about our experience and everything was really, really meaningful, and it definitely meant a lot. And I would say for people that are nervous about having these conversations, I would say, of course, you're going to be nervous because it starts off being uncomfortable, but the more you talk about it, the less awkward it becomes. And the reason that these conversations aren't had and the reason people are uncomfortable about it is because we like to avoid things that make us uncomfortable. And racism definitely, it makes me uncomfortable. I'm sure it makes you uncomfortable. So if we have to be able to talk about these things, or if we don't talk about it, if we keep avoiding it, nothing will get solved, nothing will get better. It's just putting a band-aid on on the situation, and it really isn't helpful. So you just have to just do it, have the conversations, be open to listening as well as speaking, because I've found in the past that I've received better feedback when it felt more like we were having a conversation rather than a lecture. You know what I mean? So that is my little tidbit of advice.
yeah. Well, that was really, really good, and especially the part about people from like a part that clicked with me was what you said about people not having been around a lot of Black people growing up, and I feel like that's
Hmm.
a big thing in a lot
Yeah.
of areas in the country that people don't really like. I feel like it gets slipped under the actual rug.
It surely does, because when you're not around people that don't look like you, it's easier to not think of things that affect them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So when you're around people that like different types of people and you're friends with them or your classmates or coworkers or anything like that, you start to consider them more. And I think that everyone should challenge himself to maybe try to look at your friend group and does everyone look like you? Is everyone from the same kind of background as you? Does everyone think the way that you do? Okay, so maybe try to branch out and expand your circle, because that'll also, you know, you'll just happen to expand your mind and your thinking as well.
Definitely.